So a big discussion point or question that we get into in virtually every single one of the rescue task force or TECC classes that, Rent Strategies does is, why is there this sudden emphasis on EMS and fire-based, for lack of a better term, tactical rescue teams? What about all the SWAT medics that will be on scene, and why wouldn't they be tasked with the bulk of responsibilities within the warm zone during these incidents? So I think there may be a little confusion here on the delineation of responsibility between SWAT medics and RTF medics. And we can also relate this to our emergency preparedness plans for ourselves, for our communities, because there are some good things to take from these models and, pull from to incorporate into our own emergency plans, because this doesn't have to be limited to an active shooter type incident. It can be for natural disasters. It could be for instance, this morning it is New Year's Day. The attack just occurred in New Orleans for a vehicle type attack. So it has a broad spectrum of where it can be employed, but I don't think a lot of people have given thought to this. So in this video, we're going to get into it. So in past active shooter incidents, there have been communication lags and delays in care when responding. During these delays, precious life-saving minutes tick away for all those that are injured. There have been two major shifts in doctrine related to law enforcement operations in the last 20 years. One change focuses on aggressively going after active shooters with whatever assets happen to be already on scene or, on hand that are there initially, instead of waiting for the SWAT team to, get organized and formed and set up. And that, if you're not familiar, that came from the Columbine incident. When Columbine occurred, law enforcement did what had been trained up to that point was, hey, there's an ongoing incident inside, treat it as a, basically, for us, lack of a better term, a hostage situation or hostage barricade type situation, and get a good perimeter set up, wait for SWAT, and from there, that's what traditionally was done. So we've moved away from that. We've learned from that. And now we have our new SOPs that we operate from. The second major change is recognizing the need for emergency medical contingency planning. And this includes training all tactical personnel and line officers in the basics of self-care and buddy care, with the focus being on bleeding control and the addition of a lot of dedicated tactical medics to your SWAT teams. So then one of the aspects of that doctrine shift, in addition to having that tactical medic assigned to these teams, is at minimum notifying, but ideally involving your local EMS and hospitals about, planned or developing law enforcement operations, the ones that have a, high risk for injury. So, SWAT teams are increasingly including a dedicated tactical medical component and conducting a medical threat assessment as part of their, daily organizational structure. So primarily the SWAT medic is attached to whatever team they are a part of to be the medical support for that team. And that's kind of the critical part there, is they are dedicated to that team for those team members. The rescue task force medics in their infancy were going to be these hastily formed groups of EMS medical providers that were, thrust into, again, for lack of a better term, formations with law enforcement that were on scene. Fortunately, on the rescue task force front, we have come so far in the training, formation, and organized development of established rescue task force teams. In kind of getting all of these teams trained up to a standard, both SWAT and RTF medics, they are providing high levels of care, including triage, treatment, and extraction. So the design idea being that with a large number of victims, having the RTF members able to operate at the incident and going well beyond, the old adage of staging in the cold zone until the scene is secured has already been a proven force multiplier at these scenes.
30 of atomic, 150 of sucks. We're drawing up here. This guy, he's got a lot of blood loss. He's extremely weak. Check everywhere else. We don't find anything else. He's going to get a gram of TXA over 10 minutes. Brandon's getting me a 100 ml bag right now. TXA is drawn up here. When I'm done with these two, or if I get another set of hands, we'll see which happens first. We're going to go to that.
Now, while we're on the topic, I think quickly I will just address the fact that I think a lot of people have this grandiose vision of, almost a fantasy idea of what being a SWAT medic really is, or what they end up doing the majority of their time. So TAC medics, believe it or not, really don't spend the majority of their time treating gunshot wounds in a direct threat care environment. They're more akin to that of a sports trainer that, travels with a professional sports team and is constantly addressing a lot of small boo-boos and, the aches and pains, primarily dispensing Band-Aids, ibuprofen, and tons of questions and answers. Yet it is ready and able to deliver advanced care, if it's required from a team member, or, if somebody from the team goes down hard. So it should be understood that for as long as the SWAT team is operational or the scene is active and not secured, that the team will primarily, be the responsibility of their medic and will most likely not be able to provide care to any other casualties if there, are other medical resources available. Now, one of the biggest advantages that the SWAT teams get to exploit, on the majority of their operations is the ability to thoroughly plan out multiple aspects of their operation, from the primary elements to the support elements, including, things like travel routes, medical, comms, negotiators, and so on and so on. Your tactical medics also serve as the logistical liaison to the on-scene EMS assets that support law enforcement operations. Now, the rescue task force models have been created to allow for the prompt integration of EMS medical rescue teams with a law enforcement escort. So, hence forming this package of the rescue task force. And again, these are primarily in an active shooter incident, but they could be during any other, violent threat type incident as well. And during these events, it is now common knowledge that the more time that is allowed to pass, the more killing that is allowed to happen. So there are two priorities in these type of events. Number one, first and foremost, eliminate the threat. Secondly, provide immediate life-saving interventions. Now, there are certainly multiple ideologies on how care should be delivered to the victims at these scenes, but the goal in all of them is simply to get life-saving interventions established as quickly as possible. But no matter which ideology or methodology you follow, the RTF focus should be on quick initial medical assessments and, providing life-saving interventions on scene at the point of wounding if it's needed. This should be done in concert with the efforts to extricate these victims to a casualty collection point, or CCP, which, yes, there can be internal and external CCPs, and this is where we feel there are some benefits to some of the tech rescue capabilities here, which we have a whole video coming out shortly on just that topic. But anyway, at these casualty collection points, triage, additional treatment, and transport can all be provided. So if you're looking for a good example of kind of how this goes, here's a really good one. Both, operationally, you can kind of picture what was going on, but also from the communication standpoint as well, because everything you're going to be basing this off of is from the radio traffic. So it's out of Howard County, Maryland, which there's an on-scene commander who immediately began implementing RTFs into a shooting incident at a mall. And he was either very well rehearsed, or more than likely, he was probably following a checklist, just ensuring that all the important issues were addressed. So here, give this audio a listen.
Okay, it's red zone, floor number 2 at the food court, correct?
That's the entrance I think will be appropriate when it's on. That's correct.
Okay, 91, I'm going to assign 9-6 and 1/5 correction, 5-6 to you.
Okay, I've got 9-6 and 5-6 assigned to me.
Command to 7-1.
I just have a 1.
7-1, I'm going to assign 56 to you. You'll be task force number 2. 91, you're task force 1.
And just have one's okay. All right, 91's okay. We're task force 1. You assigned 56 to both of us. I've got 96. And what other unit would you like me to have?
Task force 1, 91, 96, 56. Task force 2, 71, and 115. Command to task force 1. I want you to move to the outside of the mall parking lot. We're still staying out of the hot zone at this point. I want you to move into the mall, but I want you to stay on the outskirts of the parking area, correct? Second floor.
Okay, task force 1's direct. We're moving over to the exterior of the mall. We're not entering the hot zone.
Command to task force 2, same message. But I want you guys to stay apart from each other. So when it's time to move, we can get in as soon as we can.
Task force 2's okay. I'd recommend
EMS 2 on location. EMS 2 to command. You might want to inquire about aviation also.
EMS 2, I'm going to give you the medical branch. I want you to take care of that.
EMS 2 is okay. You have medical.
So I think that is an awesome example of how that should go, or how that should sound, or kind of start to get your mind going on how you could possibly get this organized. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on that, or if you have any other good examples of that happening. So for the law enforcement aspect of the RTF, that is to be focused on escorting and protecting the medical member or members of the RTFs to allow law enforcement and EMS to both, do what they're really good at. In addition to training together, allowing the members of the team to train collaboratively to help develop skills, protocols will come from that, procedures will come from that, and everybody at that point has an understanding of how they will operate together with maximum efficiency. Minimal exposure, if that's a necessity in whatever case you're in, and also how to respond should a sudden unexpected occurrence arise. So this is, again, one of those things. If you're looking at your community, if you're looking at the team that you have established, if you're saying, hey, well, Sue down the street, she's a nurse, and if we need her, she'll be our medical person. If you're serious about doing this and you haven't actually started training together and developing some policies and protocols, then you're kind of behind the 8 ball. So it's something you probably want to start trying to implement so everybody just gets on the same page. So probably the biggest way that I see this relating to the preparedness community or your preparedness plans is that the need to have medical training is very widely accepted at this point. But if you're organizing your team or community, take this as the example to make you realize that having an understanding of these specialized roles and assignment responsibilities can give you a deeper appreciation for the complexity of emergency situations and help you better prepare for a range of potential crises so that you are ready to designate who and with what level of training is going to be responsible for what, and whether that be basically, not reassignable, and, they would be married to the team, and which members you are willing to peel off to go aid victims. And those roles could just be, some quick examples could be having basic trauma skills, wound care and the use of tourniquets. Skills like this, at a minimum, are critical for anyone who wants to be prepared for emergencies. Another thing would be conducting triage and coordination. Your rescue task force medics have to assess multiple victims quickly and decide who needs immediate care. Plus, just having the understanding, the basic triage principles that will help in, again, any disaster scenario, whether it's a car accident or any sort of natural disaster or, a violent type incident can occur. You got to have those skills down and understand how it all works. Another big thing that, again, all members of your team should have is situational awareness, because you may have to act very quickly in a very chaotic situation. Having a plan for how to assess threats, manage your environment, and stay calm can make all the difference in the world. This includes knowing how to safely evacuate a home or a building, how to administer basic first aid under pressure, because that's a big thing. Things in the clinical environment in a classroom can become very mundane and easy to do. Put some stressors on there, changes everything. Those of you who shoot with a timer understand the self-induced stress that just putting time, on yourself can lead to. And then in addition to that, how to coordinate with others. So, we know how key comms are here to accomplish, this won't be able to be done unless you have a plan already in place. So after you have all this stuff kind of go, then you can start to plan for your, potential mass casualties. So let's be really honest. It's highly unlikely that you'll need to respond to any type active shooter incident. Just statistically, not that it's impossible, but it's not likely. So again, we just try to speak as keep it as real as we possibly can here. But everything else, all of the natural disasters, the wildfires, the hurricanes, earthquakes, and on and on and on, those can create mass casualty scenarios. So learn how to prepare, a go bag or get home bag, whatever you want to call it, assemble an emergency plan, and understand how your local emergency response teams, including the RTF units, are structured, as this will greatly help in your planning. And just like we did with the crisis communications video, we like passing information like this across to help everyone out there be better prepared. So let me know your thoughts on all of this. Let me know if you have a medical personnel priorities deployment plan in place, and if you've even thought about this, because I feel like although I base this off of an active shooter response model, it's every year that somewhere in the country we are having a large scale response, which initially is virtually 100% of the time civilian based. So, to any large scale disaster situation. So yeah, again, let me know your thoughts on all this. Please like and subscribe and all that. We got a bunch of classes upcoming, so make sure you check out the websites, medicineandbadplaces.com, as well as rantstrategies.com. And with that, as always, be safe.